If I told you the BBC wasted £235,000 over 5 years, would you call that a non-story? Probably not. And secondly, would you expect Liz Truss to be fact-checked when she's talking about TV licence fees and prosecutions? Maybe, but we'll come back to that one in a moment. But back to the wastage of £235,000, because I don't think that's a non-story. And yet that is exactly the wording used by ex-BBC producer John Mayer when interviewed by Mike Graham over on Talk TV. I'm going to play this clip to you and then we're going to talk about it.
Let's talk to John Mayer, ex-BBC producer, author of How Do We Pay for the BBC After 2027, amongst many others. Very good morning to you, John.
Hello, good morning, Mike.
We've been having a very lively conversation this morning about cabinet ministers taking money away from pensioners' heating allowances and then claiming their own second home heating allowance. But it seems the BBC, to a lesser extent, has wasted some licence payers' money on taxis, on trains and hotel bookings that were never used. 2,500 rail tickets, 324 rooms and 1,581 taxis paid for, but cancelled. And they can't get refunds. So 235,000 quid down the Swanee.
Mike, look, this is a real non-story, this one, isn't it? This is all over 5 years. 79 hotel rooms cancelled between 19,000 people.
Right, so I will link this in the description below. You can go and watch the rest of it yourself. But £235,000 over 5 years works out to roughly £47,000 a year. Now, John Mayer makes the argument here that this is across 19,000 people. It's a large organisation, etc., and makes the argument that all organisations waste money. But then they go on to a whole debate as to who's paid what and how much and whether it's justified and so on. Now, in my humble view, what a private organisation pays its presenters is entirely its own business and nothing to do with anybody else, which is something that's come up just recently. But when we talk about the BBC, obviously a large portion of the BBC funding is from TV licenses. And so this raises the question there, where people feel that the BBC has a responsibility not to waste money. So to dismiss it as a non-story, I think is a little bit insulting. Now, I do think, to be fair, that all organisations are likely to lose or waste money here and there. I like to pride my own companies on not really wasting any money and things like that. And so if you want some tips in that regard, check out one of my channels in the description below. It's Daniel Shensmith. And if you want my views, my personal views about these sort of things, you can also subscribe to Black Belt Secrets while you're down there. But this I thought was quite staggering. 2,500 train tickets, 324 rooms, 1,500 taxis that were paid for but then cancelled and they can't get the money back. Now, this reminds me of a case for a local authority who I can't name because it would give them away. But they were spending something to the tune of £8 million a year that was all wasted. And a large portion of that was on taxis. And so a lot of these were contracts that were booked and paid for that people were just not using. And of course, the taxi companies just took the money because the contract was in place, the car was available. It's just that they weren't used. And so a staggering amount of wasted money because it was a public organisation. And so the arguments made here with the BBC being the national public broadcaster really should have a bit more responsibility than that. But this then brought us on to another discussion about, within the interview here with Mike Graham and John Mayer, about people going to prison for non-payment of the TV licence fee. Now, just to be clear, you cannot go to prison just for non-payment of a TV licence fee, which is something that I wanted to come on to here, because the bit that I mentioned earlier was Liz Truss was quoted here in the Daily Mail on the 2nd of August 2022 to say, what I'm very concerned about on the TV licence fees, how many women have ended up in prison for non-payment, a disproportionate number, which is, frankly, is wrong because as you can see here on Full Fact, has been fact-checked. This statement has been fact-checked here. First of all, not only can you not go to prison just for non-payment of the TV licence fee, but this went into detail as to when people were sent to prison for non-payment of the fine for non-payment of the TV licence fee, which I'll explain in a minute. It was actually disproportionately men that went to prison. However, the numbers for 2020 and 2021, if we come further down here, says that actually no one went to prison for non-payment in that regard. It says here, There's a number of problems with this claim. You cannot be sent to prison, etc. And the figures for England and Wales show that no one was jailed in 2020 or 2021, and no more than 2 people in 2019. And even when they were sent to prison, which was the years preceding that, it was disproportionately men that were sent to prison. And so this was not just fact-checked, but it was also the other way around when it did apply to those that were being sent to prison for non-payment of the TV license fine. So just to explain that a little bit, if you don't pay for the TV license fee and you do need a TV license and you are prosecuted and you are fined, which is up to £1,000, it's a non-imprisonable offence, but it's a fine up to £1,000. Typically, I think it's in the region of £100 to £300 the fine, but if you don't pay that and it's proven that you've willfully refused to pay it, you've got no reasonable excuse, and they've tried all of the means to try to get you to pay that fine and you just don't pay it, and they prove that you've willfully not paid it, then you can be sent to prison for non-payment of the fine itself. But as these statistics show here, that no one was sent to prison in 2020 or 2021, no more than 2 people in 2019. And in fact, between 1995 and 2018, 1,449 men were sent to prison for the offence, compared to 754 women, suggesting there that it was disproportionately the other way around. But of course, now it is skewed the other way. More women are prosecuted for the offence of not having a TV licence when you need one than men. And it is disproportionate. And it is a staggering amount of prosecutions. And it's something that I feel that a lot of people are pressured into. Let me know in the comments if you have felt pressured into buying a TV licence when you think you don't need one, or if you've been prosecuted, if you felt pressured into pleading guilty because you really don't fancy the idea of going to court and being prosecuted and then found guilty. And so in that sense, some people may have chosen to plead guilty just to get it over and done with, because they might be advised at the time that the fine is likely to be in the region of £100 to £300, although it could be up to £1,000. But maybe they had no advice at all. Maybe they just pleaded guilty because they didn't want to go through the whole process. Let me know in the comments if you've been in that batch and what's happened to you, and whether you feel fearful about the non-payment of a TV license fee, even if you don't need one. And if you were prosecuted, whether you would feel fearful for being prosecuted for non-payment of the TV license fee. Because I maintain that if you don't need one, you shouldn't pay for it. And if you're prosecuted for it, but you didn't need one, you shouldn't be pleading guilty to something that you didn't do. So if you really didn't need a TV license, you shouldn't be pleading guilty to the offence of not having a TV license when you need one. And for our international viewers, yes, in the UK, we still have a TV license. So to watch or record any form of live TV from anywhere in the world, on any device, on any platform, from any company that is recognised as a TV broadcasting company, you need a TV license. Although, as I've said before, when I contacted the press office for a definitive list of which companies come within that band of a TV broadcast service, by whom would require you to have a TV license, they couldn't provide me with such a list. They said, we don't have a list. We just expect that, in my example that I gave, most YouTube independent creators would not fit into that category. But that doesn't really answer the question. And for me, as a lawyer, for something to be a criminal offence, it has to be absolutely crystal clear. And in this case, it just really wasn't. But all of this, of course, is taking into context paying TV licence fees and the BBC wasting money. So £47,000 a year, prorated on those statistics there, is quite a lot of money, because the TV licence fee in 2024 is £169.50. So to call the wastage of £47,000 a year prorated a non-story is a little bit of an insult to the some 44,000 people who were prosecuted in 2022, of whom over 40,000 were convicted. And particularly when you break down the disparity between men and women, 74% of those who were convicted were women. So I know they're very different statistics here, the wastage of money versus people being prosecuted for non-payment of the fee. They are very different things. But to call one a non-story, I think, is a little bit insulting to the 40-odd thousand people that were prosecuted and over 40,000 who were actually convicted for the offence of TV licence fee evasion, which, if you want my personal views about it, subscribe to Black Belt Secrets, linked in the description below. I'll see you over there. But in the meantime, if you do want a fresh alternative to the mainstream media with the raw, blunt, honest truth from me as a practicing barrister, please do consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.